What's mine say?
Sweet! What's mine say?
Dude, what does mine say?
Sweet! But what's mine say?
Dude, what does mine say?
But we're gonna fix mine, right?
Yep.
All right. So if you remember those Tuya-Convert videos, forget your shit out of the cloud. That was the good times, right? Well, things have changed and we do have to adapt as things change in the world of tech. So it's not about Tuya locking us out software-wise. It's about them actually changing the chip. We did talk about this in the past a little bit. Well, we're going to do a transplant and simply change the chip on your device. So yeah, there will be a little bit of soldering. And no, don't try to use a soldering iron to try to remove the chip. It's just not going to work and you're going to end up ripping the pads off. Use a heat gun. They're not that expensive. And once you use one, you're going to say, wow, why didn't I buy one of those before? So you may be asking, well, wait, I've been hearing about all this local Tuya stuff. It's not really local. I don't know why they keep calling it that name or say API. I mean, if you haven't been around Home Assistant for a little bit, think about the last time we had that's local Tuya and how well that worked out on those RGB bolts, right? And that fan controller. So don't play around, stop playing games, and just change the chip out yourself. Put ESPHome, Tasmota, whatever you want to put on it, and make it yours. You paid for the device, so you own it and do what you want with it without having to sign up some stupid cloud account to make it local. Well, wait, whoa, this soldering stuff is not for me. I just am an anti-solder. And well, maybe you should check out some of those Zigbee videos we did because there's just going to be no soldering there. But if you do, like me, like that good old Wi-Fi MQTT stuff, because it just works well and you don't want to do some soldering, well, there's some other options. There's the cloud-free stuff we talked about, and probably in a future video, we'll go over some of the stuff with Atham. They have a lot of different devices from bulbs to smart plugs to GU10 bulbs to smart switches, and they're all pre-flashed with Tasmota, and they're not that expensive. And even for the US folks, they've actually started shipping out of US warehouses that ship pretty quickly to you. So if you want to check those out, look down below in the description. We also do have a coupon code down there for you. I don't know how long that will last. So, well, go check it out and just see how things work. And if, check out a few of them and...
This is cool and stuff.
They're out of the box, ready to go with Tasmota, and just add them straight into the Tasmota integration Home Assistant, or you can also flash ESPHome right through the web GUI. But that's not going to be what we're going to talk about all with the pre-flash devices, since we want to get our hands a little dirty, because I will tell you it is addicting. Once you're going to do your first one, you're just going to say, wow, what other devices can I change the chips out on? If you haven't done any soldering before or using a heat gun or whatever, we'll definitely leave some of the links down below from some of the things I do recommend. We're going to go through just like we always do, step by step, and bring it to you and show you exactly how to do it. Pretty much anyone can do it, and you don't have to have the steadiest of hands, because I definitely do not. So typically when you pop open your switch or whatever it may be, you're going to probably find, or maybe in the past, the TYWE3S module. And yeah, this is a typical, a lot of people call them the Tuya module, and there's an ESP8266 inside. And then of course you could flash it, say just solder directly to the RX and TX pads, or you could take, say, a little jig with some pogo pins, slide it around, put some clips on it, hook it to your USB TTL adapter, and away you go. And then you put whatever software on it, and now you've got a fully local control light switch or whatever it may be. But things have started to change. So you may open your little LED controller and you immediately see this chip inside, and it looks very similar. It's the WB3S. Well, that's not going to be an ESP8266 inside. So guess what? You're not going to be able to put your jig on it and flash it and do your thing. You're going to need to replace this guy. Kind of the same thing, say, with this little Treat Life dimmer plug that pop it straight open. And you get excited at first, but then you say, oh, there's no typical ESP8266 inside. Now this is the ESP12E, and there are a couple different ones. There's the ESP12F, and really the only difference that I've found is the antenna configuration, and it is a little bit different. And you're probably saying, well, I've seen these before. And let's zoom in a little closer just for the benefit of some of the mobile users. So yeah, if you've seen the Wemos D1 Mini or even the Node MCU, you've probably seen these modules on here. And yeah, this is the D1 Mini clone type that does have this little module soldered on top. It's very similar to this one, as you can see, and the antenna is really much the only difference. They do say this antenna configuration is a little bit better signal than this one here. So one thing you'll notice is the pinouts. It's going to be pretty much the same chip. So if we lay this on top of here, it's going to fit pretty much exactly like the other module that's not ESP. And we'll probably just refer to it as the junk module or something like that. What other kind of name you want to come up with. If you come up with a good one, leave us a comment down below. Maybe we'll roll with it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take and use a hot air gun, and we're going to heat up this chip. And yeah, it can be a pain if you try to use a soldering iron and try to solder in here and remove the solder, and then you're trying to pry it off, and then next thing you know, you're ripping the pads off of your awesome little switch, and then you're getting mad at me. Don't do that. We're going to get a hot air gun and let this pretty much fall off itself. And this isn't the only chip. There are some others. The WR3 module. This is a Realtek one we started seeing a couple years ago, and you can see it looks pretty much the same. So if you do have one of these modules, well, you can also replace it because the pinouts pretty much going to be the same. So some of the tools I do like to use, and this is a very important one. There are a bunch of different remakes of this, so you can really get whichever one you want. But of course, we'll leave the links down below if you're lazy and want our help to find the exact one. And plus, it does help out the channel a little bit and doesn't raise the cost. Now, this has a couple little different things. They call this the code burner. And I know it doesn't really burn the things on it, but you know, it's just flashing it. But what's cool about it, these little pins are spring loaded. And I don't know if you can tell, but basically you just take your ESP12E, 12F, whatever in this size, and you just push it down in here. And now you can write your Tasmota code, ESPHome, plus it does have all the breakouts for all the GPIO pins. It has the flash buttons if you need it, the reset, and then the USB Mini on the bottom. And this works just like a Node MCU or the Wemos D1 Mini. You pull up Tasmotizer or whatever favorite flashing program. You don't even need to do any GPIO 0 holds or whatever it may be, and you can flash Tasmota to it. I do highly recommend to flash your chip first and test it. Put it on your Wi-Fi, make sure it works, because of course, since you're hooked up through serial, you don't need to do that access point thing. You can just put in your access point, SSID, and password, whatever it may be, set up MQTT, do what you got to do all before you even solder this thing down on your switch. It makes it really easy. Pretty neat little board, does have plexiglass in the back, so if you do have a metal table, it's not going to short anything out. I really love this thing. It definitely is a time saver. But of course, if you just want to do it manually, you could even flash these just using your little jig, whatever it may be. Now, a couple other things I like to have available. Of course, typical little spudger. And this came out of my little iFixit toolkit, which I really love. I want to thank my son for thinking of me and getting this for Christmas. It's a cool little kit. It does have, I mostly use the screwdriver one in it. And it does have a little magnetic tray, has all the little tips, including the weird triangle bits you'll run into, and the hex security bits, and the square bits, and the whole 9 yards, and even has this little flex bit for finding crazy angles. But whatever toolkit you want to use to open your stuff, hey, by all means, get it done. I usually like the spudger out of it for popping things open, such as little Bluetooth controllers and whatever it may be, and dimmers and the whole 9 yards. Now, the other cool thing is you think, well, hey, what is this stuff? Well, this is Blue Tack, and it really helps out. It usually comes in like a little pack like this, and kind of looks like kids' Play-Doh, but it actually isn't. And it's great for if you need that third hand, you're trying to solder something on, you can just take a chip or something and you can put Blue Tack on it, and then you could solder around it. It holds it for you. It may get kind of stuck to it, but it's not going to ruin anything, and you just pull it off and reuse it. It possibly may get a little dirty from stuff, but whatever, this stuff is stupid cheap. Pretty awesome stuff, and it definitely saves you a lot of time and frustration. Of course, depending on whatever else you've got going on, you've got so many different flavors of these helping hands, where if you want to put something in here, hold this, because you're going to call your wife over or a significant other to help you hold something. They're going to think you're crazy, and you're going to burn them or whatever it may be, and this definitely helps hold things, and that way you could solder and do what you need to do. So if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, there is some cool little ones like the TS100. This is the Secure or Secure, however you want to say it. I think they're always trolling me with names on this stuff. It's pretty similar to there. It's going to have a pop-in little portable type deal. You do have the temperature. You don't have to flash any different firmware like those TS100s. I know that may be a little better. Now, keep in mind, it does have USB-C on the back, if you can see that, but it's going to need 12 volts from it. And they do give you a little barrel connector to USB-C, and also they give you XT60. So for you drone enthusiasts like myself, you can put, say, a 4S or 5S or even 6S battery and rock and roll and do stuff out in the field. Pretty cool little soldering iron. We'll probably do some more with it as we go on. But one of my favorite soldering irons is the Hako, or I don't hate-o. It's pretty awesome. It heats up super fast, and it's really simple to use, and I've done a lot of soldering with it, and it's definitely changed things for me on my soldering. It does have a cool little stand that comes with it, and do keep in mind, with a lot of this stuff, you're going to get what you pay for. And I would spend a little more money on the soldering side. I know they talked about doing the heat guns, which we're going to get to. You can probably cheap out on those a little bit because you don't do a whole lot with them except trying to heat up these chips. So this got a cool little stand with it, and does have the little tip cleaner, little steel wool thing in there, and you can put a sponge in the whole 9 yards. Plus, you can easily change out the tips. Pretty cool little soldering iron. I do love this guy right here. Now for solder, definitely, and I know some countries may not be able to get it, but I prefer the leaded solder. It definitely helps things out and flows definitely a lot better. This is, you can see the mix here. It says this is 6236-2. This one's the 6337. This is just a larger style, just a larger diameter. I really like this fine solder from when I'm doing the ESP chips, but sometimes you need something a little thicker. Now, definitely get you some flux. Even though that these solder pieces do have the flux core, I do prefer a flux, and there are a couple different ones. This is just a little flux gel that you can dip things in, or you can get a flux pen. It's kind of the same deal as basically, but it's different, easier to apply. Is you just push it down, you can apply flux to where you're going to solder. And you're saying, well, why do I need this if that already has that? It definitely makes you a better solderer. You put flux on it, it definitely makes the solder flow into the joint, stay put, and with the right tools, you'll be soldering like a pro. And a lot of this stuff, I've used this same tools and same solder for several years. So once you do buy it, it's going to set you for several years of enjoyment and working on electronics. So down to the heat gun, if we can get this in here. Now, there's a bunch of different ones you're going to find. They're all going to be pretty much like clone knockoffs. They're going to have like the 848s or 858s. I can't remember all the numbers. This is just one I happened to pick up. And they're really going to do one thing. It blows hot air that's going to heat up the chip in a somewhat even matter compared to what you could do with a soldering iron, and it has a little digital display. You set your temperature, you turn it on, and some of them have the little stand that you can put the heat gun in. That way you're not going to burn yourself. And the heat guns, well, a lot of times will have different tips, like a big one or a small one, and you just unscrew it when it's not hot, of course, and it blows hot air straight out the tip, and you just really kind of give the chip a bath, and you're going to melt the solder and let the chip kind of fall off. And we'll get to that in a second. Now, one thing I would recommend with these different ones, we've found that sometimes the wiring on the inside, the fuse is actually, they fuse the neutral. And in the US, you don't want to do that. And they've also switched the neutral where the neutral's getting cut off and the hot is staying on all the time. Some of them I've even heard the ground's not even connected. So definitely, whatever one you buy, and if there is a perfect one out there, please let us know down in the comments down below. I'd love to get that one and actually verify for everyone else that, hey, it is a good one to use without having to check the wiring. I did have to modify the wiring in this one, but it was really simple. I just took off the 4 screws, and then I just changed the neutral and the hot, flipped them over, and I did use this to use the heat shrink and heat it down to make a good connection with the wire after I did solder it. Pretty simple, and it definitely makes it safer for everyone. So let's get on to doing our chip heating per se, and we'll solder a chip down and get it done. And definitely do not forget, go put Tasmota on this guy first. If you need help with that, definitely leave a link down below, because I've done a ton of videos putting Tasmota on an ESP chip before. So the one thing I do like to do is put this at, I know it may be difficult on the camera to see, but we're going to try to get a different angle as well, and we'll switch back and forth depending on how good the video editor is, which of course is me. So we'll set our heat gun at probably around, this is going to be in Celsius. We'll set around 320. We'll see how well this works, because you don't want to apply a lot of pressure to the ESP or the chip or the junk chip, whatever it may be. You really want it to fall off by itself. And really the best way I've found is actually have this upside down, but of course that would be very difficult for me to film. So we're going to try this just like this. And make sure you're not really going to heat up other things. And you can have, like, say, a spudger and have a little bit of pressure on, say, the antenna, and just not a lot, just a little, and you kind of go back and forth on the pads that are soldered. And you may have to jump up the temperature if you find it's not melting the solder. I feel it creaking. Because now you're kind of at a good point where you just want to heat up now the other side, because you don't want to pull those pads off. And don't burn your fingers. And you want it to just slowly kind of pull off itself. And you can see how it just fell off all by itself. And hopefully you haven't ripped any pads. Now if you rip the pads off of here, off of this chip, that's fine. So I'd say all of our pads look to be intact. We did melt the case, I don't say the case, but part of the plastic there a little bit. I probably should have pulled this more out of that housing, but hey, for the most part, it's okay. And, well, we've got another chip here, the WB3S junk chip. We're going to put this in our shadow box, or the box of shame, or whatever you may want to call it. And because, well, maybe one day we'd use these things. I wouldn't throw them out. They don't take much room. But pull it off of there. And one thing what I'm going to do is we're going to take some solder, and I'm going to solder these pads, and basically going to tin those pads. So we'll go ahead and heat up our solder gun. And this one, yeah, I know you're probably going to pick on me. It is in Fahrenheit. And I'll probably go to 750, especially when this was in Fahrenheit and then the heat guns in Celsius. And I think you can change them back and forth, but I just was too lazy to do so. Maybe if I had somebody to edit my videos, I could have more time to set those cool number things, right? I'll put some flux on those pads. All right, let's see if we can do some soldering by screen. All in the name of y'all being able to see. So don't pick on my soldering skills too bad. It's upside down for me. That one above it, there's no continuity to it. It's just a white pad that they have there. I don't know the exact name of that. Some of you PCB guys will know. These are going to be your RX and TX pads up here. Because this particular one uses a Tuya MCU in Tasmota, and it also uses it in ESPHome. And basically what it is that secondary microcontroller that does all the LEDs and dimming and everything, and the ESP chip is just a Wi-Fi module per se. And for the Tasmota people, there's no template required for it. Just pick the Tasmota Tuya MCU module in the configure module screen. Basically what we're trying to do is we're going to line this chip up and use the little holes, and then we're going to flow solder right into it. And if you want to use your hot air gun, you're more than welcome to. And if not, just put a little solder. You can set it down, and you're wanting to get continuity with those few pins on there. And what I like to do, and everybody's going to have their own little different ways, is I'll take the blue tack and stick it towards the bottom. That way I'm not heating up the blue tack, and I can hit these pins up top. And once I do those, that will hold it, and then I can snag the ones on the bottom. Or you could do vice versa. So I'm wanting to solder and let it completely heat up. You don't want to heat the solder, you want to heat the joint and let the joint actually melt the solder. That way you don't end up with what they call a cold solder. Or solder, however you want to say it. It may not be the best job, but I'm going to be the only one that sees it really. Just make sure it does have continuity and you're not bridging to the other pins. Now, one thing that we do need to do, we do need to put a little jumper or a glob of solder and bridge this pin. Get a little closer. We do need to bridge these two pins right here, because you need to bring GPIO 16 to ground, otherwise this will not boot. Just doing a little bridge. It's just ground. You just want to bridge those two and call it a day. And because that's a requirement of the ESP8266, typically on devices where they designed this, it would have a pull down resistor and pull that down for you. So now it's time to plug this bad boy in and check it out and see if it works. See, it's on the network, plugged it in, and like I said before, go to configuration, configure module. This is a Tuya MCU, and hit save. And we're not going to go through the whole thing because we've showed how to set up some dimmers before. But this is the little Treat Life little dimmer indoor plug, and we'll leave the setup down below if you'd like to use this one as well as the product link. And we're good to go. You can see we send over the heartbeat packet and it comes back with the status, and that's pretty much it. Now you successfully put Tasmota or ESPHome, whatever it may be, and made this device yours. And yeah, it may be a little bit of work. Hey, if it's too much, there's definitely alternatives, but hey, it's definitely very rewarding to do. Oh, and by the way, there's a user 85QC something 867, I don't know, and I forgot, it's like a long ass name. He says your Wi-Fi sucks and so does your UniFi. I don't know why, but I guess he must have a WRT54G, and when he puts more than 3 or 4 Wi-Fi devices on his network, it just falls to pieces. So y'all go check him out on Reddit. We'll leave the link down below. Maybe y'all can help him upgrade his Wi-Fi so he can use some of these awesome products. I'm definitely going to dig into more of trying to do some ESP32 because it does add that sweet Bluetooth scanning, which is probably one of the reasons why they've been changing some of those chips out from ESP8266, because it does add Bluetooth pairing, which makes it definitely easier for folks. But I'll still keep it in the back of the mind that they changed the chips just because of us, right? We'll roll with that.
This one has an ESP and it's all cool and stuff. Press all of the buttons and y'all take care. Parasailing?
What is parasailing?
Because you have to go in because you have a parachute and it floats you.
Oh.
Walk up behind the counter. We're like, no.
Uh-oh.
All gone. Dinner.
Hey, Owen, can we throw your food in the sand and you pick it up with your mouth?
Because I've never been parasailing.
Look, it's a big smiley face.
Ready?
Yeah. On the green, the blue. Look at this. Isn't this cool?
This is a 7C. Look at the 7C.
7 C's?
I can see my house I can see our house from here. Wow. This is so amazing.
We all have our burdens, yeah, but we just keep on fighting and we never look back. Here we go.